Forest Avenue Libraries, oops, there we go, Forest Avenue Libraries annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. event. We're so happy to have you here, even though it's via Zoom today. My name is Sue Woody, and I am the director of the Des Moines Public Library. And we are very thrilled and honored to have local artist Jill Wells with us today. She will give a presentation and we will have some time. She has asked for a few minutes at the end. So go ahead, if you do have questions, go ahead and type them into the chat. And our librarian, Nikki Rhodes, will compile them and we'll do those at the very end. So without further ado, I will introduce our speaker. Iowa-based artist Jill Wells is best known for her dynamic and colorful narrative paintings investigating race, history, stereotypes, accessibility, and human experiences. Born in Des Moines, Iowa, Wells was raised in Indianola, Iowa. She studied at Drake University, BFA in 2005. She's an award-winning artist and has been in practice for more than 20 years now with public and private works in Iowa, California, Mississippi, Arizona, and New Orleans. Her artwork is represented in the permanent collections of the Center for Afrofuturist Studies at Public Space 1, the City of Iowa City, the University of Iowa, Evelyn K. Davis Center for Working Families, Disability Rights Iowa, Iowa Lutheran Hospital, the Annette Nature Center, Blank Park Zoo, the West Wing of Polk County Jail, and Creative Visions Human Development Center. Wow, that's a lot. In 2021, Wells was the recipient of the Iowa Arts and Culture Resilience Grant for the development of her mentorship program, Artist X Advocacy, AXA. Additionally, in 2021, Wells was selected for Artist Inc. Fellowship and was a TEDx speaker on the powerful impact of public works of art. In 2020, Lavender and Lime profiled Wells in an online published portrait manifesto series, Black Lives Matter Portrait Manifesto, and she gained a fellowship in the Iowa Creative Incubator at Mainframe Studios. Currently, Jill Wells serves on the board of directors for the After School Arts Program and works as a full-time audience. So welcome, Jill, and thank you for coming and being our presenter today.
Okay, thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead, if it's okay, and for the sake of the work share, I'm going to close out my video so you won't see me, but I'm going to start the work share. And I think I have to do this in a specific order. Okay, so I believe everyone can see my screen right now. If anyone cannot see the work share, you can unmute yourself and just let me know. Okay, thanks, Sue. All right, so as previously introduced, my name is Jill Wells. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a 41-year young biracial woman with short dark hair. I am wearing today a black and colorful polka dot sweater. And I'm sitting in a room, and behind me on the wall is a framed painting entitled What We Will Overcome. I am a mixed media visual artist, and I work to cultivate environments specifically through my artwork where the creative class can thrive with community partnerships as well as community works of art. And I want to personally thank you all and extend my warm gratitude to you today for your time, which is very valuable. And I want to say thank you to the Forest Avenue branch of Des Moines Public Library for hosting this event today to honor the amazing life of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I am happy and very humbled to be the keynote speaker for this year's event. And so today I'm going to be talking with you about time, unity, and honoring our ancestors through creative endeavors. And I will be doing that through the use of a PowerPoint presentation that will include images of Dr. King throughout his life, and it will include images of Dr. King with his family, with his fellow cohorts. There will be images of protest, and then there will be some overlapping images of both my work and Dr. King's work, and images of two of my primary public works of art here in Des Moines, and some images of my private practice work. I have a short video that I have sound that you can access through my website for today's work share. I will give you the audio description because the audio is something that I'm not able to get going for you. And so there's going to be some things I'll probably hold back for the Q&A session. So please know I'm really looking forward to the Q&A session at the conclusion of today's event. It's probably one of my favorite things when it comes to work shares and attending talks, is I love Q&As. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. Astronomers confirm the universe is about 13.8 billion years old, and our planet Earth is about 14.5 billion years old. And the landmass that is known as North America is actually pretty young, becoming something close to its current incarnation less than 200 million years ago. Fossils and DNA suggest that people looking like us, anatomically modern Homo sapiens, evolved around 300,000 years ago. Surprisingly, archaeology, tools, artifacts, cave art suggest that complex technology and cultural behavioral modernity evolved more recently, around 50,000 to 65,000 years ago. So civilization as we know it is only about 6,000 years young. And industrialization started in earnest only in the 1800s. So while we've accomplished much in that short time, this also shows me something much more. It shows me that with the universe being almost 14 billion years old and Homo sapiens existing for only about 300,000, that human beings have existed for approximately 11.2 minutes on the calendar of the universe. The Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th of 1776, and that makes the U.S. a mere 245 years young as of July 4th of 2021. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st of 1863, and the federal holiday Juneteenth, commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans, has been celebrated annually on June 19th since 1865, making Juneteenth a mere 155 years young. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January the 15th of 1929 under the name Michael King Jr. Dr. King was, among many things, an American Baptist minister and activist who became arguably the most visible spokesperson and leader in the American civil rights movement to this day. Time itself is neutral. It can be used either destructively or constructively. More and more, I feel that the people of ill will have used time much more effectively than have the people of goodwill. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. Human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of men and women willing to work to be co-workers with God. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively, in the knowledge that the time is always ripe to do right. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This quote comes from Why We Can't Wait, published in the 1960s by Dr. King, includes his letter from Birmingham jail and explores the events and forces behind the civil rights movement. Dr. King often spoke of time. We are not makers of history. We are made by history. And there comes a time when people get tired of being pushed out of the glittering sunlight of life's July and left standing amid the piercing chill of an alpine November. A lie cannot live, and we must live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Dr. King was only 39 years young when he passed on. I wonder how many of us here today are past 39 years young. I know I am. King entered Morehouse College in 1944 and received his doctorate in 1955. In his 39 years on Earth, Dr. King accomplished the bulk of his work in only 13 years. And in that time, he brought publicity to major civil rights efforts, promoted nonviolence during protests, contributed in founding the African American Civil Rights Movement, was a primary leader in the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955, was one of the founders of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and its first president, fought against segregation in Albany, Georgia. He helped organize nonviolent protest actions in Birmingham, Alabama, and was one of the organizers of the March on Washington in 1963, where he delivered his most famous "I Have a Dream" speech. He helped organize the Selma to Montgomery marches in 1965, and he worked tirelessly on segregated housing in Chicago. He fought against poverty in America and fought against Americans' involvement in the Vietnam War, and planned the Poor People's Campaign, which was a national occupation of Washington, D.C., but was assassinated before this could happen. This all while being targeted by white supremacist groups and surveillanced by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation from 1958 until his assassination in 1968. And yet, he remains steadfast in the fight for equality and freedom. I know all too well about the neutrality of time and about the destructive and constructive use of it. I have also come to understand that unity is the pathway that Dr. King speaks of as the alternative to perishing as a fool. Dr. King said, "We are all wrapped in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Artist and activist and close friend of Dr. King, Mr. Harry Belafonte, reported that King shared his doubts with him during his life, and that King had once said, "I am not cut out for this. I don't know what to do." Regarding leading others into and through the movement, that King was concerned about possibly leading others into harm's way while moving the dream forward. Here was a young man shaping human history. More than a monolith he was, and he had doubts, just like many of us have doubts in affirming our dreams. On October 26, 1967, Dr. King gave a speech entitled, "What is Your Blueprint?" Dr. King was speaking to a group of students at Barrett Junior High School in Philadelphia. So I asked myself this same question in preparation for today's presentation and celebration. And to give context to the text, I'd like to share an excerpt from the speech. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great essayist, said in a lecture in 1871, "If a man can write a better book or preach a better sermon or make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, even if he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door." This hasn't always been true, but it will become increasingly true. And when you discover what you will be in your life, set out to do it as if God Almighty called you at this particular moment in history to do it. Don't just set out to do a good job, set out to do such a good job that the living, the dead, or the unborn couldn't do it any better. If it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, "Here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well." For it isn't by size that you win or fail. Be the best of whatever you are. In October of 2020, I began research for a mural entitled Future at the Evelyn K. Davis Center for Working Families to honor the legacies of community leaders J. Barry Griswold and Evelyn K. Davis. During my research, I came across an interview that Mr. Griswold had given as the 2003 Horatio Alger Award recipient. And he said, "I think you have to focus on whatever it is that you have been given to do and do it extraordinarily well. And somehow, opportunities come when you do that." The words of these three leaders were saying the same thing to me. These words were the same words I feel like I had been saying growing up in small town Iowa. Early on in life, I picked up on the reality that inequality was ingrained in human subconscious behaviors, thoughts, and beliefs. And that in order to address some of the primary inequities that I faced, such as racial, gender, and socioeconomic inequalities, I was going to have to get creative. The idea and the personal belief that I had to work extremely hard to be average and be exceptional to be good. So to be great, I needed to be perfect. Whatever perfect was then, it is not now. However, old habits do die hard. And this means that what I have been given in life, in my family, in our community, in my practice is handled with great care, and rightfully so. I believe that what I have now came by way of tremendous sacrifice from those who came before me. All of these factors drive not only my creativity, but what I feel like are my creative solutions. How can I take a 4,500 square foot set of exterior walls and represent diverse walks of life, family structure, cultural expression, racial diversity, expressions of love, inclusivity, accessibility, dreams, forms, and different styles of communication? How can I use artistic expression to narrate legacies that feel like the heart and spirit of visionaries? And how can this be done with dignity and in a way that our community can experience themselves and our world differently? I went about doing this through the use of iconography or the visual use of images and symbols in a work of art. I used images of Black home ownership to nod at the notions of history of redlining and current redlining. I used graduation leis with tuberose to symbolize respect, peace, friendship, and love. I used creative historical and cultural expressions by way of artificial nail extensions because as far back as 3000 BC, Egyptian women were believed to have used ivory and bone for nails to show that they were descendants of royalty, like Queen Nefertiti. I used images of foliage, green, to represent hope, renewal, and revival. Different foliages of ferns, hostas, to symbolize devotion and friendship. Going back to the scale of time, it took me over 5 years of applying for an exterior public work of art in our community and countless rejections to obtain this commission. In the universal scheme of things, those 5+ years was not even a millisecond on the scale, but it felt like a lifetime. I believe oftentimes in our pursuits of our dreams that this is how time appears. And so for me, when this happens, I return to the words of Dr. King. Whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. As an artist, advocate, and mentor, I am deeply concerned that my intentions and my work are mirror images of each other, and that what I'm building is guided by equality and provides equality. That is my blueprint. And that in order to keep moving forward and following this blueprint, I'm focused on 2 main community goals that I would like to share with you. In March of 2021, I founded Artist X Advocacy Mentorship Group. And this mentorship group and program is designed to cultivate an environment in which the creative class thrives through both community works of art and community partnerships. AXA is a paid annual mentorship for any mentee that is involved. And it is designed specifically to help the emotional and social and academic transition for any graduating high school student in the Des Moines community area. So this program is open to any 11th through 12th grade student. And the blueprint specifically provides that stipend for the mentees, weekly individual sessions, and personal and professional development. All the mentees have access to mainframe studio space. They are engaged in community workshops, field trips, and by the time they're done with the mentorship, receive a resume and portfolio with professional headshots that they can take out into the community at large or beyond to pursue whatever their endeavors are in life. This year, AXA teamed up with Operation Downtown and the Iowa Department for the Blind to activate the downtown Des Moines Skywalk systems and creating an accessible public work of art. Since March of 2021, AXA has provided community youth art and empowerment workshops for Jack and Jill of America, Inc., completed multiple community outreach engagements, and officially mentored its 2021-2022 inaugural mentee, Ava Palmer. And Miss Palmer is currently active in our community. She is in her first year of college studying communications. Palmer was born and raised in Des Moines, Iowa, and has been a part of nonprofit organizations such as Movement 515, Girls Rock DSM, and Art Force Iowa. She attended the Performing Arts Broadway Summer Intensive Camp and is a member of the Iowa Youth Justice Council. Coretta Scott King said, "It doesn't matter how strong your opinions are. If you don't use your power for positive change, you are indeed part of the problem." I personally believe in those words. And outside of AXA and my private practice, I'm focused on using my creative endeavors to create accessible works of art, not only within our community, but beyond. According to the World Health Organization, globally, at least 2.2 billion people have a near or distance vision impairment, and 43 million people globally are living with blindness. There are around 55,000 museums globally. So when you do a quick Google search, you're going to come up with the top 10 museums that have accessible artwork when you are looking for specifically how many museums have accessible artwork that you can actually touch. So if you do take a deeper dive, you will reveal, or this will reveal like a little bit more. However, the disproportionate need is absolutely incredible. And if you don't happen to live near one of those top 10 museums, good luck finding one. My current body of work is extremely exciting for me because representation is a core value of mine, and the desire to manifest this value into my practice is where the ADA Braille series and the Blackboard Sensory Art Project derived from. I believe art, interactive sensory art, can provide pathways where there are true needs. And for me, never was this more evident than when 20 years ago, my brother suffered from a massive brain hemorrhage, which among other things has left him without his sight. This is my brother, and he has always taught me to be persistent, lighthearted, and to love myself. After his brain hemorrhage, I asked myself, how can I create with him and for him? And this answer would take a lot of time. In November of 2020, I began creating paintings, specifically oil paintings, on the pages of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. I chose the ADA specifically for 3 reasons. One, the power of the text is astronomical. The ADA is one of the most comprehensive pieces of civil rights legislation that prohibits discrimination and guarantees that people with disabilities have the same opportunities as anyone else to participate in the mainstream of American life. Also, the accessibility of Braille allows for this text to be touched, so you are able to touch art where typically you're not allowed to do such a thing unless you're the creator of it. These tactile paintings feed what I feel like is one of our most neglected senses in a digital world that focuses aggressively on visual and audio stimulation. And the opportunity for education and conversation. In 2021, the US celebrated the 31st anniversary of the ADA, and the fight for disability rights does continue. And looking back at what was and what is can be the start of where education and conversation meets. This is why I wanted the ADA of 1990 as the text for the surface. 10% of the sales of each of these is donated to the Friends of the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. I partnered with Iowa Department for the Blind to complete community workshops in February of 2020, and I'm extremely excited about that. And in these talks, I think we'll be doing a little bit of online documentation, so I'll be able to share those with you as well. Additionally, in 2020, I completed a mural commissioned by Disability Rights Iowa to capture the spirit of the fight for disability and human rights. This design was also looking at equality and the love and care in the human experience. This mural was designed to create a welcoming environment for the Disability Rights Iowa clients and their families. This is indoors, and so if anyone is looking for additional access to this, please reach out to me because it's not out in public space. And most recently, I begun research and development on touch-activated art, and the title of this work is the Blackboard Sensory Project. Each work in this project is specifically designed to be touched. And when you do touch the work, it activates sound, audio descriptions, and provides a sensory experience. So for individuals living with different levels of sight impairment or total blindness, that is a big part of how they experience and receive information. Those audio descriptions are quite crucial, along with the sensory experience of touch. So within this body of work, there are paintings, works on wood, object art, there are epoxy resin works, which are probably some of my favorite, braille, paper collage, sound, light, and raised line works. So I'm going to advance the slide here. This is a video that here we go. I had to turn off the audio. So you'll be able to, for some of you, see what's happening here. I have a raised line painting that goes along the outline of a bank of clouds. That bank of clouds extends from the left of the canvas all the way over to the far right of the canvas. And it's this engulfing bank of ochre and umber clouds. The raised line is what activates sound. So behind the scenes, this painting is outfitted with a series of sensors that when touched activates the sound. So for individuals who need a specific level of engagement that goes beyond sight, it allows for a sense of freedom that they can just walk up to the piece and experience it almost all on their own. So it removes some barriers. This is a prototype, so it's a work in progress and it's evolving. And this is one of the pieces in the Blackboard Sensory Project. The sound is howling sounds of a storm. And then when you touch the individual to the far right, that is an individual in protest. They are outfitted with an umbrella, and really you can touch anywhere on that figure on the far right hand side, and it's going to activate the audio description. So you have an audio description and then you have a sound. So you have two kind of opportunities to experience it beyond sight. I've always been drawn in by Dr. King's artistic wordsmithing. The language of art and the art of language takes many forms, I believe, just like us. We all come in many forms, and now I feel more than ever we must wield the power of our many languages to create unity in our collective lives, to make absolutely sure that our young, precious democracy does not fail. In his "What is your blueprint?" speech, Dr. King not only asked some seriously deep questions, I believe he voiced some very hard-hitting truths. He said, now each of you is in the process of building the structure of your lives. And the question is whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. Don't allow anyone to make you feel that you're nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth, and always feel that your life has ultimate significance. In your life's blueprint, you must have as the basic principle the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavors. You're going to be deciding as the days, as the years unfold, what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. When I think about the work I've shared, and I think about the work taking place in our community, and I think about the words of this speech, I ask myself specifically, what is Dr. King's purpose for writing this speech? What is he trying to convince the audience of? Or more in today's reading, what is he trying to convince me or us of? So I would like to ask those attending today if they'd be so kind to discuss this question briefly in the Q&A. And so I would like to end my keynote with a thought on this. I decided a long time ago what I wanted my life's work to be. And like most building processes, the best laid plans change. The thing that has not changed is the essential need in my world and in my work and what I feel our community is the essential need for unity and equality in all of our human experiences. Thank you.
Okay, wow. Thank you so much, Jill Wells. That was a really powerful message that you portrayed. And at this point, let's ask our audience, what will your life's work be? What is your blueprint? We're getting a lot of comments in. Amazing, Jill. Thank you. Stunning. Thank you, Jill. Would anyone like to message what is their life's work? Okay, I will. Mine is being a nurse. Wow, that could not be more important than right now in what we're going through. We haven't really even mentioned that COVID word, but would you like to address that, Jill, and the effect that it's had on your work and our first responders and nurses out there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I grew up with a nurse. My mom is I tell her all the time, I'm not cut from that cloth. I think it's a special person that has that calling. And what I find really fascinating is that, at least the gal who said that, what was her name? I saw it. I thought it was a lady's name.
Tori S. Tori S is our nurse.
Oh, so that is my mom.
Oh,
she's hilarious. So I'll divulge like some private stories about my mom. She's very hard on herself. She does not see her impact in the world at large. And I think this of all first responders, firefighters, EMTs,
teachers,
teachers for sure. Yeah, like I was trying to get to a specific one I was thinking of, but I think it's really all we do. Like, there's a video I watched. We used to share it a lot in counseling. It's called "This Is Water" by David Foster Wallace. He's an author, and he was given a commencement speech. And in that speech, he was talking about these two goldfish that are swimming, and then this third goldfish comes swimming by and says, "Good morning, boys, how's the water?" And the other two goldfish look at each other and say, "What the heck is water?" And I feel like that's very true of us. I think just in general that we don't often see kind of what's the obvious around us, and that we have this tremendous impact on other people. I mean, that's what I took from that. And that, like, we won't know until I feel like we transcend and whatever people's beliefs are. I think that there will come a time where we will see how we have impacted people. And I think that's vitally important because that's what I felt like Dr. King was talking about when he goes into this blueprint, that sometimes there's this like really huge, question about like, what are you going to be in life and what are you going to be when you grow up kind of thing, and existential kind of questions. And I really wanted to talk about us as a community today, like all of us here in this room. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to meet some of these, people that are here today. And I know some of them I have. And we have such a powerful opportunity to create really positive impacts on each other's lives. And then what happens after that is tremendous.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I would like to read just some of the comments that are coming in. Jane says, wonderful, Jill. Thank you for sharing your gifts today and for all you have done in the community. Awesome presentation. Michelle says, I work to make the arts more accessible and to affirm young people through the arts. Thank you, Jill, for your amazing work and for our long friendship and collaboration. That must be a buddy of yours. Laura says, thank you, Jill. Art is an amazing place for all of us to meet. Oh, I love that.
It's true.
Melinda B says, thank you, Jill. I just started teaching art with the ASAP to my children, and it has led me to my life's work, which is helping children connect to their truth power through art. Thank you for your guidance and for all you do for our community. That was one of the same questions that I had. I'll put my question into her comment. Is you are doing some wonderful work, and I know you are inspired by what is your blueprint when you were working with the AXA. And so what can we do to support our youth to celebrate their creativity and help them express themselves and their universe through their art or their creativity?
I can speak from personal experience. What helped me growing up is always feeling like there was actually a opportunity to do art as a career. And sometimes I've experienced that conversation kind of falls to the wayside, maybe as we kind of get up there in years. It's kind of like, and I don't know what anyone else's experience was, but if you have young ones and you put their artwork up on the refrigerator and then like it stops sometimes somewhere, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I think youth pick up on that and they see, oh, it's possible, and then it stops. And so I guess if I could offer any advice is to always encourage that can be your tool to have a fulfilling career and impact in your community to keep going with the arts.
That's great. A couple more comments. Viola is one of our friends of the Forest Avenue Library, and I know that is part of her life's work, but her work is working for racial justice. And she's involved in the community in so many ways. Another person who is very involved in our community is our fire chief. It says, thank you, Jill. I don't know yet what my ultimate purpose will be, but your patient description of the clouds reminds me to listen to my inner voice and be open to what is possible for me, and also to listen to others who may be seeking on the same path of seeking. Maybe I can help. In the meantime, I can help firefighters to serve others. That plate is currently pretty full, but there is always more we can do. Thanks again, Chief. So
wow.
Again,
That is tremendous. Thank you so much for doing that work. And I'm going to remember that feedback. That really hit home, his description of how the piece, what he's kind of thinking of now. I love that.
Well, public service. I look at Dr. King, and his art came through his words, and your art comes through your paintbrush and the different medium that you use. So I think whether it's music, whether it's racial justice, working and being involved in our community, whether it's helping those in need, like our firefighters, using using and recognizing those talents and those tools. You've really shown us a way to do that in a very creative manner. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Well, and I think about that a lot because I have had that question, I feel like always posed throughout my life, like, what is art? And I find things like math to be artistic. I find things like science and physics to be artistic. And so I think it's very much in the fabric of all of what we do. It's even the art of conversation. It's a real thing. So
Well, and conversations can be very difficult,
right.
especially today.
Right. And like when you have a finesse about it and you really actively listening and then able to respond, it does become to me very artistic because it's like a dance between you and the other person that you're engaged in conversation with.
We do have someone who has, and I'm going to ask Nikki, I don't know if we can unmute the audience, but Joy Esposito says, I am the Assistant Director of Evelyn K. Davis Center. May I address working with Jill on the future mural of our building? So
That's cool with me. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, Jill.
Hey, Joy.
I just wanted to take a minute because you mentioned the wonderful future mural that we are so proud to have on the north side of our building. It is so phenomenal, and to this day, when we drive up, it's really a sight for sore eyes, and to be able to see it at the end of the day as well. What I really wanted to address actually was the process in working with Jill was phenomenal. Jill, I remember walking through our building and giving you a tour and just talking really freely and openly and honestly about the work that we do and why we do it, the services and programs we provide. And I think you really hit on so many of the things, not only to honor, I think, Evelyn K. Davis and Barry Griswold, but the staff that have come through the center, the clients that we see, and really the community itself. And so I just wanted to jump on real quick and say I appreciate you so much, and being able to work with you and seeing the progress of the mural with your parka on certain days and trying to wish the rain away really was magical. And I'm so pleased to know you, and I'm grateful for the work that you put in. I know it's not just paint on the walls, it really is your heart and soul on our building, and I think we feel that every day, and we are so lucky that we get to see it day in and day out. So thank you so much, and I do hope to see you soon.
that's awesome.
Thank you, Joy. I think one of my favorite experiences there is the Men on the Move closet. So for anyone who doesn't know, you can reach out to Joy. She'll articulate this much better. But it was like a very emotional experience when I walked into that closet because it was just such a dignified space. And there's everything from, polished shoes, full suits, vests, shirts, ties, like pressed. And, it's for individuals who maybe are, coming out of jail or prison and involved in the program, and they need to feel a sense of dignity and respect so they can get a job, take care of their family. And just when I was like, it was so beautiful just to know that that was available. I didn't know our community had anything like that. Like, I almost cried. I was like, Joy, I got to get out of here.
I'm so glad Joy shared that. We do have a listener that would also like to have you talk a little bit about the feedback that you received on a different project. And that was one in the Iowa City murals, which were very straightforward in their messages about racism and justice. Can you comment on that?
So those two are accessible through a couple different sites, Public Space One online, the Center for Afro-Futurist Studies online on my website. And so the two artists that worked primarily with Public Space One in designing the concepts they're not here with us just in the presentation today, but I can provide their information. It's a set of images that were really inspired by W.E.B. Du Bois, and the more than an idea, it's the reality of what's known as double consciousness. And so the images, one specifically says, weaponize your privilege to save Black bodies. And then the other says, Black joy needs no permission. They're towering images. So they are in Iowa City, and one is 68 feet tall by 27 feet wide, and the other one is 58 feet tall by 27 feet wide. And I've never been on a mural project of that scale. So for one, you know, you're up in the air, sometimes 80 feet off the ground, which can be very scary. And you're really trying to focus on your work. And whether people loved it or didn't love it, you would hear about it while you're up there working. And not only are you hearing that being yelled from a car, but you're also just feeling the movement of all the traffic below you and just the sounds of the traffic below you. So, you know, I think a lot of times the reality of the process of what goes into some of these public works of art gets missed because of the message. And I just want to encourage individuals that it's like, it is much more than a mural. You know, it goes way beyond what's on the wall. And individuals who are really trying to use art basically as their tool for change, for their protest, for their advocacy work, for their activism, you know, to try to do some type of good in this world and leave it a better place. That be something that is educated for individuals who may not see it like that on the onset. You know, so for me, it was a pretty life-changing experience, not only for what I gained in just the skill set, but also some of the realities that hit home for you know, the work that we do have to do. So in celebrating MLK Day and Dr. Martin Luther King's work and his family and, you know, his fellow cohorts today, like, I'm honestly inspired. I do see that the work is continuing. But again, when I think back on that scale of time, like, it's oftentimes where it feels like it's taking forever, but really it's not. And so I think there needs to be some grace for all of us, that it's just going to take, you know, past our generation and other generations. As much as I don't like to admit that, I would love to just wave a magic wand and it's all, you know, maybe what I want right now, but maybe not everyone wants what I want.
I'm pretty certain that that's probably how the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. felt at times as well, and how powerful he was in such a few short years. Here's a question. Where can I get, you have so much, you were said earlier, it's not just paint on a wall. It's not just words. You have such symbolism that you have just sewn into your work so beautifully. This listener wants to know, where can I get more information about the meaning behind the choices, like the nails on the Nefertiti mural? I admire your work, but knowing the background adds so much more depth.
Mm-hmm.
So the foliage, the colors
Right.
that you choose. How do we find out more?
I can do a post. I would say within a very short amount of time that kind of breaks all that down. The gist of that went out in a couple different publications, but I think that might take that individual some digging to do, and I would rather just get it to them that in a way that's very accessible. So it's super easy for me just to post that on my blog, on my website. The screen shares, if you guys didn't catch it, there's a QR code that you can just scan on your phones if you want. That'll take you right to my website, but it's www.jillwellsart.com. And you just go to my blog, and I'll drop all that information in there for you. And then, you know, aside from that, there's a lot that you can find online now that will talk about things like color theory and the psychology of color theory, the use of images throughout, you know, art history, what you could use for this or what you could use for that. So there's probably too much information that you can find, but it's culturally specific. So what might mean one thing in, you know, our culture as far as a color is going to be something else in another culture. So some of it's specific for the work that I've chosen, and trying to be very cognizant, like I don't want to use the wrong thing right here because I'm actually trying to have this conversation. And I know if somebody who's not from where I'm from comes upon that, then they're, you know, so it can get kind of tricky, but I'll give you what I had used, and then you can always ask me or any other individual, like, hey, like, what do you experience or think of when, you know, even you look at this color? It's like a multi-billion-dollar year industry. Like, advertisers use color to drive everything we do.
They do.
So it could get a little tricky.
Well, thank you for that. And we will make sure that we add that link. We'll send a follow-up email out to all of our participants, and we will have a link to your website as well. So we look forward to reading your blog and checking out your website and finding out more information. This has been a truly beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. We cannot thank you enough. What a great way to celebrate the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His advocacy is similar to your advocacy. All of your work with disability and those who are don't have, you're sticking up for them, and your artwork is so beautiful and it touches so many people. I know other people are already asking how do we get involved and how do we work with Jill on future projects. So inspirational, very wonderful. I would like to thank you. I would also like to also acknowledge our Forest Library supporters. That's of course the Friends of the Forest Avenue Library. They are so fantastic. And our Forest Avenue Library Brick Fund. They support this opportunity as well as so many other things that we do at the Forest Avenue Library. So we do have some artwork and displays at the Forest Avenue Library, and we hope that everyone will join us at the library. Come in. It's your space. It's your space to learn more about art, learn more about finding ways to put your creativity to work in our community, find out more about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The library is for everyone, and there's something there for everyone as well. So again, thank you, Jill Wells. I'm just inspired. I went down a total rabbit hole learning about your work, and I love driving around and seeing it in our community. Thank you. Thank all of you for attending and making this a priority on this very special day. And thank you to Forest Avenue Library. And find out more on our website, dmpl.org, as well as Jill's website. Thank you again, and everyone have a wonderful MLK Junior celebration. Thanks so much.